Hello, Crowan here. This video is going to be about the 5.1 patch update that comes out tomorrow. I'm going to be talking mostly about the PvP side of things, so if you don't like the PvP side of things, then this video is probably not for you. But anyway, carrying on. First up, we have a point about the duration of disarm effects. They have been reduced down from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. To be fair, even though my main is a monk, and monks aren't really affected by disarm effects, I think this is a well-needed change to the game. Mostly because every other CC in the game is 8 seconds as max duration, and now it's bringing it into line with everything else. The one bad thing about this though is that people are going to stop taking the weapon chain, which is going to mean that there's going to be more damage going around because people are going to have the weapon enchant that buffs your damage rather than having the reduced duration in disarm. So it's a slight buff to the amount of bursters coming out, which nobody really likes right now, apart from the people who are overpowered or really like the burst anyway. Next up is the weakened blows effect has a new icon, which is just something that you've got to readjust your brain for, but nothing big. Okay, so first class, Death Knights. They're only getting one change, probably really annoying for anyone who's playing the Death Knight right now because they're getting such a lack of changes, whether it is buffs or nerfs to try and fix them, they aren't getting any. Okay, so the one change they did get was a nerf. It's that damage received from players or player controlled sources, so like pets or stuff like that, no longer counts towards increasing the healing done by Death Strike. This is a nerf, mostly a nerf towards blood DKs where they can stay alive for a long amount of time, which everyone sort of knows against melee. But this is going to take them down. This is going to mean they're not going to do as much healing, but then it does mean a nerf to the overall Death Knightness, which is kind of weird. Seems they only have one change and that was it. Okay, so class number 2. Druids. First actual change is a buff to Guardian's Druid, which isn't actually a normal PvP spec, but basically what it's going to do is reduce the next auto attack damage after you use more. Second change, Omen of Clarity now has a different visual effect for Feral Druids. This is another thing where you're just going to have to look out for the difference, and then apart from that you're not going to need to worry about it. It's going to be the same as you used to play in PvP. Okay, so Symbiosis. They've done a ton of Symbiosis changes, and I'm going to bring you them in each section rather than try to bring them all in one go. Okay, so Mass Dispel. This is the balanced Druid's use of the Mass Dispel when they use it on a priest, and it's going to have its mana increase so it matches the priest mana version, because otherwise at the moment basically it's cheaper and it's mad or whatever, so it's going to be brought into line. And you're going to have the cooldown increased by 60 seconds. So what it's going to mean is when you're playing your balanced druid, this was your dispel. Like, you don't have a dispel as standard as a balanced druid, but now, like, you know, you did have one, and then now they're sort of bringing it back into line. So it's actually a nerf to balanced druids in a sense of when they're playing with a priest. But apart from that, it's fine. It's an okay-ish change. It's going to mean that you're going to have to pick really hard when you're going to use it rather than at the moment, which is a bit more you can just, you know, use it whenever. Second change to Symbiosis is that the cast time of Symbiosis has been reduced to 2 seconds. It was 6, so what this is going to mean is that 6 seconds it used to take was like, oh, I can't cast it in the middle of the game, right? You know, like you're playing with a mage and a priest and you want Ice Block and then you want Dispersion or something, you're a Resto Druid, you need to switch back and forth or whatever because you need mana or something like that. You can actually cast Symbiosis on, you know, if you did have it on the mage and then you cast it on the Disc Priest, and then you're gonna, no, or the Shadow Priest, sorry, and then you're gonna get that Dispersion and then you can get the mana back from it. What this is gonna mean is crazy good. Druids will be able to switch mid-game, or even just an average player if they think they need it, can just switch mid-game, and it's gonna change the whole world for Druids in the sense of just the playability. You know, the skill cap is being raised just based on Symbiosis. Next up is that Survival Instincts is once again being given to Brewmaster Monks, and it's going to cost you 2 chi to use. This was a reverted change, like they put it in but then it was too overpowered and then they tried to change it, whatever. Now it's actually, they fixed it, or so they say, and it's going to be straight back in. So tank monks are going to get Survival Instincts. Obviously tanks aren't really that big in PvP, but I just thought I'd cover it really quick. I'm not going to go too in depth on it, so there you go. Pretty similar story here with Death Knights, Blood Death Knights that is, as the tank Death Knight. Might of Ursoc is once again be granted to Blood Death Knights, and it's going to cost you 30 runic power. So it's also similar story where they're going to gain this buff and it's going to change whatever, and it seems fine, like same thing as what Brewmasters are getting, and also Protection Warriors, they're going to get Savage Defense as a Protection Warrior, but it's only going to provide 30% increased dodge. But yeah, there you go. And Bark Skin is also going to be on Protection Paladins and going to cost 1 holy power. There you go, that's all the tank stuff. I can't be asked to read it all out and do it all again, so here we go, that's it done. Okay, back to some more PvP related things. The cooldown on Stampeding Shout has been reduced from 10 minutes down to 5 minutes. This is the warrior based Symbiosis buff that gives you movement speed boost to everyone around you. So obviously this is a good change for warriors when they're playing with a druid. I think this is quite a good change, although warriors have quite a lot of maneuverability. Do they need more? I don't know. I think that might be a bit of a dodgy buff. Quick tooltip change, which is going to show the actual correct time, which is going to be 4 seconds on the solar beam duration, which is completely crap that it isn't already. You don't want it to say one number and then do another. Blizz, why don't you patch more often so this sort of thing isn't a big effect, rather than, you know, a whole bloody, you know, I don't know, 2 months since the patch, you know, the first patch of Mr. Pandaria came out. Okay, so 2 solar beam changes. One is the glyph related, and I'm not sure if the other one is, but who cares? I'm just going to bring them out to you. Basically, they're making the duration be reduced to 8 seconds, and also the how far around it goes around the druid, I guess, or the template, whatever, is going to be 10 yards instead of, it was adding on 10 yards for the glyph, but now it's only going to be 10 yards. This nerf is basically going to mean that characters like feral druids that want to heal or cyclone when they're on a boomkin, or monks that want to use chi wave and stuff like that, they're actually going to be able to use this. Also, Death Knights is going to be a big buff for them to be able to use diseases while inside a big AoE, because it's going to go down faster. There's also going to be other little like nerfs, like when they root someone and then chuck a lovely solar beam on top. It's going to mean that those people aren't CC'd for as long, but you know, they're still going to be CC'd, but it's just going to last less, and it also means you're going to get less coverage, so you're not going to be able to pull it around pretty much a whole pillar. It's going to be just part of it, so you can keep moving. As long as you can keep moving, you'll be fine pretty fast, and it doesn't mean you're going to need to trinket just to get away and around, like, because it's going to be shorter duration. It's going to be quite, you know, it's 8 seconds instead of like ridiculous forever and ever time. That's all for druids. Now on to hunters. Okay, so first up, marksmanship buff. Careful aim now increases critical strike chances of steady shot and aim shot by 75% on targets who are above 80% health. This is basically going to be a pretty good buff. This, like, despite what a lot of marksmanship hunters have been saying, like that, oh, we're not doing enough damage and stuff to be competitive, and you know, even when they nerf all of Beast Mastery, it's going to still be the best spec. I think this is going to bring them in line somewhat. Seems they are getting a lot of nerfs on the whole end of Beast Mastery with the Beast of Wrath nerf, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Basically, I think this is going to bring the whole aim shot in from high health, so 100%. It's going to bring them straight into like 80%-ish health, because this is going to crit every time, and it hits quite hard. And with that crit, it's going to mean like you're going to drag them in to that 8% health in like maybe 1-2 shots or something like that. And I think when they are at that health, it's like you've not done too much, and it's going to mean every time they are topped, it's good. You're going to be a good switcher now. Like, you're going to switch, and you're going to take that first chunk down, and then your partner's going to take a chunk with you, and then you can pop some cooldowns, and it's going to mean you're going to be way better going for people who are on high health. I think it's going to be great, like, in the sense of you're going to be doing that extra damage. So I think that's a really good buff for marksman, despite what a lot of them are saying that they're still not going to be viable. Okay, so the next 2 hunter buffs are pretty much the same thing, which is that Aspects of the Fox got removed, and Steady Shot, Cobra Shot, and Barrage are all going to be able to be used while you're moving. This is going to mean some crazy damage increase, because basically you don't no longer need to use Aspect of the Fox while you're moving around. You can still use Aspect of the Hawk, which is going to be more damage, just straight up more damage. Also, Steady Shot, Cobra Shot, and Barrage rolls are going to be able to be used while you're moving, so while you're moving you're going to do more damage, which is going to mean great marksmanship buffs. Also some buffs to Beast Mastery, and Beast Mastery more relies on their pets, so it's going to be more, you know, focused damage that they're doing actually using their stuff. And it's also going to mean buff to survival, so I think it's a good buff, because it's not super buff for a bestial end of things, the whole Beast Mastery spec, because they rely more on their pets doing damage, and then them doing damage because their pets doing damage and stuff like that. But now it's going to mean that the other 2 specs are going to get some buffs, but also the crazy nerfs that they're going to do in a sec, which I'm going to read, are going to be, you know, not so massive. So it's going to be quite a good balancing buff that they've done there. Okay, so next one is a nerf to the bestial end of things. It's a talent, but it's mostly did the crazy damage in Beast Mastery. But basically, Link's Rush is now going to be a bleed that causes damage every 3 seconds over a period of 15 seconds and stacks up to 9 times. Rather than the current state, which is it does instant damage and it smashes the crap into people. It's crazy shit. Next is a nerf to Beast Mastery again, which is that Bestial Wrath no longer gives immunity for pets. and which is going to be amazing. This is going to mean that they can't just hit Stampede and Beast of Wrath and then the pets just kill you. What they're going to have to do is use it and then time Beast of Wrath to either remove CC from them or use it for the damage. They can't use both, just blend them in together. It means that what you're going to be able to do is CC the pets. And you might have to cast 2 sets of AoE CC to do it, but you're going to be able to do it, which is a great change. They needed to have done this a billion years ago. Like, it shouldn't have even gone on live without this being this effect. I feel like this Beast of Wrath has been like, whenever someone's gone Beast Mastery since TBC, has been like, oh, I pop this cooldown and then you can't do any CC to me. I'm the ultimate damage force. All of your skill is gone. I just pop buttons and you're dead. And really the only thing you could do against someone that had popped it for so long had been either outdo their damage and kill them, or try and out heal them, but they're doing extra damage to you anyway. So you've kind of got to do the one. You can't really like trinket or dispel or anything their immunity to like every crowd control effect ever. And so, you know, it breaking it only, and then they did that on the Hunter, and then now it's breaking it only on the thing. So it's just like a trinket for their pet and them at the same time. The next Hunter buff, which is a buff, because the last few have been a nerf, but this one's a buff, is that the Glyph of Icy Solace is now being renamed to the Glyph of Solace and makes Scattershot and Freezing Trap both on the same glyph. Basically, Hunters was really moaning about this. Basically, that if you wanted, you could either pick the one or the other, and if there was dots on either one, so if you wanted to scatter someone and freeze and trap them, you had to have both glyphs if there was a dot on them, because otherwise you couldn't do it. Like, people was just taking it on Scattershot, and then so it would remove the dot and then you chuck them straight into it. But if you only wanted to use like freezing trap, like you knew they was going to run around the pillar, you chuck it down, like, and they had a dot on them, then you were screwed. It was just like, and you couldn't use like Scattershot just to interrupt or whatever and save your freezing trap cooldown or whatever for whatever reason you needed to. You couldn't do that. Like, or if your teammate CC'd, like, so let's say your friend cycloned and you chucked it like next to the cyclone, like the freezing trap, so then when they come out they would get freezing trapped, and they had a dot on them or whatever, it didn't matter, like you just come straight out. So it was really annoying. Now it's all in one. I feel like this is a great move from Blizzard's end. It's gonna, like, you know, it's merged this coolness together, which is quite cool. Merging this coolness together is quite cool. I cannot believe I just said that. Okay, anyways, a new major glyph that has been added, Glyph of Aim Shot. This glyph allows aim shot to be used while moving. Obviously this is a crazy good buff for mostly marksmen and whatever, but you know, being able to move and shoot as a hunter feels like it's gonna be kind of, you know, it feels like a more mandatory thing unless it's gonna do tons of damage. And I feel like that's, you know, what Power Shot needs to be doing right now. That's what, if I was like in Blizz's end of things, I'd be like, make a buff sort of that allows like some way of marksman or survival or whatever to reduce the cooldown of Power Shot, and then have it do more damage based on something else. So like they could proc 2 things and then it do tons of damage and it whatever, you know, like a good compared to everyone else right now, I'd say something like 100k but a big setup. And I feel like then it would be in a good place. But at the moment, like, it does less than a Chaos Bolt, and Chaos Bolt is on less of a cooldown. And it does less than a Frost Bomb, and Frost Bomb's on less of a cooldown. It's like, what? How does that make sense? And it also cast time is way longer. So I don't know what Blizzard's doing, but you know, hopefully they do some changes like that. But obviously this is to do with aim shot, and I think that's quite a good glyph. Okay, on to the mages! Okay, so first change is an Arcane Charge buff change, which is going to make it go from 22% to 24%. And most people are like, oh, that's not much. It's actually a crazy good buff, because what it does is it stacks 6 times this thing, right? So when you think about it, when it's stacked up fully up and whatever, and you just hit your Arcane Brash, and it also makes, for every charge you have, it AoE. So 6 charges, so 6 people it AoEs to, and it hits them for 50% per damage. 50% charge, so it like is a massive, crazy AoE burst damage thing. It could mean like crazy good damage. I don't know. Then again, Arcane isn't overly powerful right now, so I feel like it's fine, but then if it might need scaling down again. Like, I would have said 1% might have been a good change, but if they was in an okay place for damage before, they're going to be in a great place for damage now. Rune of Power is getting a buff, which is a level 90 talent for mages. What this is going to do is no longer have the cooldown on it, which is quite good, and duration now is shown in the UI, which is kind of something I thought they would have needed to do, but it didn't, and I don't know, whatever. basically this is a thing that's on the floor and you walk into it and then it increases your damage. It replaces evocation, which is probably the worst thing about it, and it's probably why nobody's taking it, but I don't think Blizzard realised that. It increases your mana regeneration by 100%, and it also increases your damage by 15%, and you only have to stand in it. You can place 2 down at once, so there you go. That's, you know, the gist of it. Okay, so a nerf to Ring of Frost, which it should never have been buffed. I don't understand. The Ring of Frost now has 45-second cooldown. I swear when it first came out it was like 1.5 minutes or something. And then it was 45-second cooldown. Then they changed it to 30 seconds, and now it's back to 45-second cooldown. You know, the change. Why? Like, Ring of Frost is pretty fucking OP. So why are they? Oh my god, my brain hurts. Basically, you know. And it can also no longer affect 1 billion units, which was mostly a PvE thing, but I guess, you know, in a PG, then that's also kind of important. 10 targets, you know, you could just send your Stampede at them and then half the fucking charges are gone now, so I don't know. Is what I can see, as far as I know, is this is going to be a really good buff to everyone else. We're not going to say it's a nerf to mages because, you know, there's still like 45. It's only 15 seconds, but I think it needs to be about a minute long, at least a minute long, because it is a really, really strong CC. You can have 3 people in basically what is considered on my end as a deep freeze, because they can cast at you in it, and they can set up deep freezes in it, and they can sheep and whatever else they want straight after it, or whatever, and it DRs with sheep, but it does. It's like a AoE fear, but it also, well, it's like AoE sheep, but then it also is a deterrence of the area that you're in as well, so you can put it somewhere and it stops people coming in, and it's just such a strong thing for a 45-second cooldown. I don't understand why Blizz thinks this is a good, you know, amount of time for it to be there. In a world full of CC, the person who has the duration reduction on magical effects is probably the most OP, right? But like, Mage Armor is getting a nerf. It now reduces the duration of harmful magical effects by 25%, down from 35%. But basically, as far as I can see, from comparing it to the Monk's talent, which I'm just going to moan about Monks for a second, it shouldn't do anything to do with CC, like reduction or anything like that. It should just, you know, reduce the duration of dots, because that's pretty much what ours does. It removes dots, it doesn't remove CC or anything like that, and that really annoys me. But anyway, we're going to keep to the mage end of this. Mage Arm now reduces the duration of harmful effects by down from 35%. This used to be 50%, believe it or not, in TPC, and it was OP then, and it's still probably going to be OP now. 25% is a lot. It should probably be something like 10%, you know, and that's still a lot. Like, people don't realise, but that's going to be like a second still off. More or less, like, it's going to be 0.8. Maybe, you know, they need to tailor it so it's like 1 second off, and then it would be fair, because you can get out of, or already as a mage, right, you have 2 ice blocks to get out of CC if you need them. You have blink to get out of every stun pretty much, because it's on such a short cooldown, and then you also have this, so it reduces sheeps and fears, and you're just like an anti-CC machine. And then what makes it even more annoying as a mage, no, as someone who's against the mage or whatever, is that they have tons of CC to go with that and tons of damage. So, you know, just what else do you need, really? Okay, so next up, the damage absorbed by Ice Fire has been reduced by 25%. This is kind of their staple defense mechanism, and it's getting reduced. So I feel like they want mages to have to play defensive, and then teams are going to try and sit on mages, which is going to be kind of good in the sense of, like, right now their damage seems quite crazy, and it's going to mean that they're going to have to play defensive and then have to get, like, lucky with all their CC and setting up everything, and then they can do tons of damage, which will make them more balanced in a sense, because then you've got to, like, break trinkets and stuff, and then the person, and then they've still got damage, like, defense cooldowns and stuff to use, which probably should bring them in line, I think, maybe. But then again, you still have people who can just dispel that straight off, and then mages are going to be sat in like a big pile of crap anyway, so I don't know. Next up, Combustion's periodic damage is now based only on the current Ignite instead of both Ignite and Pyroblast. Damage has been increased to approximately the same level as before. Basically, this is to try and cut down Fire Mage's RNG, because it's always RNG. They try to base everything off procs of Ignite and crap like that. They try to have them revolve around Ignite heavily, and then they kind of end up cutting them into one place and stuff. But basically, as far as I know and understand, it's going to take some of the RNG out of things, It's also going to mean that you're not going to get 2 lucky crits in Ignite and Pyroblast and then have it do millions of damage, but then later on it's going to do like shrivels and you're going to be like, what? So, I don't know, maybe my understanding of it is wrong. Mostly, if it is because I haven't played Fire Mage in so long. And now for an awesome buff, because I do love this lovely talent, which is Blazing Speed, may now be triggered after receiving damage in any amount. I used to love this when playing it in TBC a lot, because you could go like Frost Barrier and Blazing Speed, and then they sort of changed it in Wrath and stuff, and then they changed it in the Cataclysm and stuff. So I didn't really want to play my mage as much because I used to have loads of fun in BGs doing it, but they've like changed it so you can do it now anyway, pretty much. But basically, you can only have Ice Barrier or Blazing Speed, but who cares or whatever. But Blazing Speed is going to be amazing now. It can proc off anything, so you could just attack the mage. If they picked Blazing Speed, they're gonna be flying around everywhere. And with the Ice Barrier nerfs, I can see a lot of the time, unless it's comp specific, they're going to be taking Blazing Speed. So that's something for you to watch out for. Blazing Speed basically removes any movement impairing effects, and then speeds them up like, they turn into a rocket. So there you go. There's a Spell Steal nerf I'm about to talk to you about, which is that it has been increased to 21% of the base mana for Fire and Frost mages, up from 7%. What this is going to mean is you're going to get off like 4 or 5, and then you're not going to be able to cast anymore, and that's quite good because they would be able to just spam it. You'd be able to steal like things really easy, and you're not going to have to worry about like the mana usage. People would like literally like cast it like 5-6 times at least just to get Blessing of Freedom off Ret Paladin, which means that the Ret Paladin, like, he just lost his Blessing of Freedom, and they do it on wings and stuff like that as well. And I can see the point, like, oh yeah, I need to get the wings off, like, it'd be really good damage for me, but it was too attractive for them, in the sense of they would just spam it until they got what they wanted, and then they would carry on doing whatever they was doing. Now it's like, you're gambling kind of, unless they have like hardly any buffs up, and then you're not gambling because it's not such a big thing. And I think it just brings them in line with everyone else in the sense of it's a choice, not you have to do it as soon as you see wings go up on a paladin or anyone else's buff for that matter. Like they would steal Touch of Karma off me, the bastards, and then they have fucking giant damage shield and whatever. But they just ignore it. It's going to bring them in line with everyone else. Now on to probably the best class in the world, obviously. No, I'm joking, but it's my class right now, so let's talk about monks. Okay, so first up is pretty much a quality of life buff, but it's actually quite a good buff to our damage in the sense of when we actually have silenced or interrupted someone, we're going to get to actually use our other moves and still use energy-based stuff, because we're not going to have like a big chunk of it, 1/3 gone pretty much. Which is that Spearhand Strike now costs 10 energy instead of 30. Okay, so pretty big nerf to Healy Monkeys, which is that all healing spells which have mana basically, have had their mana increased by 10%. I don't know why they did this. When I played my monk as a healing monk, I never felt like my mana was OP, and then I would be using the Mana Tea quite often as well to try and keep it up, but it still wouldn't matter, like I'd still be getting smashed all left, right and center. So I don't know, maybe that when you get into some raiding gear with some spirit and stuff, it's really easy to actually keep your mana up, but who knows, so maybe I'm just crazy. Two pretty solid quality of life buffs here, which is that Legacy of the Emperor and Legacy of the White Tiger had their energy cost reduced from 50 to 20, and this is really good. And this is basically your buffs. So you're going to be able to rebuff without having half of your energy gone in the middle of like an arena game, or even just in general, like when you come out in a BG, if you don't do it while you have that little buff up, if you like jump off the platform or something and you don't have the little buff where you can like just cast them for free, it is so annoying. You use the 2, whatever, and if you get into a fight, you have 0 energy. 0, it's mad. So, it was so annoying. Another great buff from monks, which is quite crazy really, which is that your healing spheres are going to cost not 60 energy, but 40. And that 40 energy is going to mean that when you're playing or whatever, it's going to be kind of worth it on like small situations where you use healing sphere on yourself. Mostly when you're not completely dedicated to running away, but you need to get a little bit more health. You're going to be able to use it because it's not going to cost you all of your energy. Like, you'd use one and you couldn't use the second one. Now you're going to be able to use the one, and then with the global cooldown plus the next one, you're going to be able to do 3 in a row, which is the max you're allowed to put out at once anyway. And pretty much you'll be able to set these up at the beginning of an arena game, where you could currently only put 1 down, and then you'd need to mount up or run you know, get ready to fight, because somebody could easily have run in and started to fight you, but now you're going to be able to pop the 2 down, and then you'll get the 3rd down just about as when they reach in, which is going to be pretty solid for Arena and BGs and whatever else, so I'm well happy with this. Next up, which is a crazy good buff for damage on pretty much all specs, which might sound weird, but healing and tanking also use Tiger Palm to gain a armor reduction or whatever, but basically Tiger Palm now, you're going to need to use it once, and then it gives you 30% stack straight away. In a single thing, it no longer stacks or anything, so you just smack Tiger Palm, 30% armor reduction. This is going to mean when you're in Arena and other places anywhere, it's going to drop off a hell of a lot less, in a sense, because you could just, it only going to cost you 1 chi rather than 3 chi. Oh, it's just such a good buff. It's going to be such a good buff to your damage. You're going to be able to get you're going to be able to Tiger Palm and then Blackout Kick, or whatever. And you can do that instead of going Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, Tiger Palm, right? And then so you're going to get more healing or more damage if you're standing behind him from Blackout Kick. And it's just such a nice buff. Next up is another buff, which is Stance of the Fierce Tiger, which is usable by all specs. Just in case you're wondering, it's going to be able to give you 10% increased movement speed. So it's going to sort of be like what Priests is, where you switch between inner, fire, and inner wheel. Like, you're going to switch back and forth for healing and for tanking. Obviously, tanking isn't so much, like, unless you're flag running or whatever, you're gonna like run, and then you're like switch into tank form so I don't die. But you know, that'd be quite funny to be fair. But this is gonna basically mean you're gonna get, as a DPS monk, you're gonna be able to actually fight so much better. And if you're running away as a healing monk, and you like literally you're only running away, because you can do hardly any heals when you're in that form as a healing monk, you're gonna, you know, you can use that 10% buff, right? But this is gonna mean mostly a buff to melee, which is going to be that when you are chasing someone, they can't kite you, which is a big problem, and a lot of people are like, oh, you've got so many rolls and shit, what the hell? But basically, roll like goes a set amount of yardage, and so you roll, and then you're too far away, and then you've got to turn around and come back. So if they're skilled, they can do this triangle thing, and it's so annoying, because you can't get to them, unless you've took the one talent which gives you a 30% speed buff, which most people don't do right now. I take it whenever I don't need Tiger's Lust. And it basically allows you to catch them, basically. But this is going to mean that you're no longer going to get kited, and so you can save your rolls for actual things to roll to, like you're changing targets, you're rolling to get paralyzed and stuff. So I might actually start trying to switch around and try to use leg sweep instead, because I think I'll be able to get more paralyzes off, where I won't have to worry about using roll so much as a thing. It's going to be more defensive use and stuff like that. So this is going to be a big change for monks in general. Next up is a buff to tanks and melee mostly, but it's also a buff for healing, which is that the healing provided by Healing Sphere base spell has been increased by 20%. So it's not going to be so shoddy, which it is right now. It's going to actually probably equal out to be about 20k heal, which you can put down 3, and like I talked about before. So those 3 will actually allow you to get some actual healing. It's quite crazy. I don't understand what Blizzard are doing, but no, I do, because everyone else does 60k in 1 heal. So, you know, hopefully this will actually bring us up to par with everyone else. And you never know. Next up is a buff mostly to healing monks, and mostly to do with arena-related things with the Crackling Jade bit. But basically, the chance to generate 1 chi while channeling Soothing Mist or Crackling Jade Lightning, which are both channeled spells, has increased to 35%, up from 25%. Basically, Crackling Jade Lightning is just a damaging move, and Soothing Mist is their healing one, which they have to channel out to someone to be able to do, instant casts on some of their moves and stuff. And basically, it's like one of their main heals, basically. And this is a really good buff. I think this is actually going to help balance out the mana nerf that they got before, because when they use 4 chi, they gain a mana tea, and then mana tea gives you mana back, basically. So, it's a good buff. And nerf to compromise, so I think this is going to overall mean more healing, which I thought that they was doing pretty okay on healing, and it was they're keeping their teammates up while they were CC'd and not getting that happening. So I don't know, maybe we'll see what happens. Next up we have a nerf, mostly for melee related things, which is that the Power Strikes talent, and that grants Power Strikes effect every 22 seconds, which it was 20 seconds, it's now 22. Which causes the monk's next attack to generate 1 additional chi, and this was based off of Crackling Jade Lightning, Soothing Mist, and Jab, which are your main chi generators. So this is like a nerf. don't really know why they gave us this nerf. This is like mostly like you kind of need it right now as a melee, and they've like buffed other stuff and whatever, so I don't know, I think they might have nerfed it just to try and bring it in line with everything else. Oh, such a horrible nerf. Like, this is like, when you first start and attack someone, you get 3 chi, so you can Rising Sun kick, and then you jab once, and then you're back to 3 chi, and then you can do your full stun. So if, you know, if that, like, in a BG and stuff like that, that's really important. Now you're gonna have to, like, jab twice, and to get, and you'll end up with 4 chi, Rising Sun kick, and then you jab again, and you're back up to 4 chi, and then you can actually use it, and it's like, oh, so annoying. So I think I might still keep it, but I'm gonna have to test the other stuff out. But you know, it's not a nice nerf, but it's not the end of the world nerf, pretty much. Next up, we have a nerf to something that was pretty much useless for melee, so don't worry if you was one of those. But tanks and healers are gonna hate, which is that healing elixirs is now no longer 15-second cooldown, it's now 18 seconds. Basically what this did was give you 10% of your health back every time you drank a tea or a brew. Right, and obviously, like I said, the mana tea thing, you use that quite often, like, you know, pretty regularly, because you use it to get your mana back, and you've got to use it, and you don't want it to get to full stacks, otherwise you're wasting it. And you also have a similar thing for Brewmasters, except for Brewmasters was crazy good with this thing, right? Every 18 seconds, they'll probably still take this, and they'll still get it every 18 seconds, because theirs increases the duration of a dodge thing, so like basically every second, so they can just spam it every second it's up to keep their dodge up to like full stacks and whatever, if they wanted to, like as long as they got enough crit. And so it just meant that they would just like they're still gonna do it, like every 18 seconds you get a free heal, like 10% of your health. So if the healer's struggling, you're keeping yourself topped anyway, and with your stagger and other things like that, it was just crazy good. Obviously, Mistweavers, when somebody's going on you, you've got an extra button to push, a 10% instant cast heal. Obviously, if you took the glyph, if you haven't took the glyph, then you gotta, it's a channel thing, so it's waste. But you still got, like, Thunder Focus Tea, which is 45-second cooldown, so you can just use that, and which also increases your healing when you're gonna heal anyway, because you're dying. But Windwalkers, their actual chi usage is, like, long cooldowns or your big damage buff, and your big damage buff doesn't stack on itself, so you can't just use it all the time to try and keep it up, like, and keep it ranking itself up. You can't do that, it's just waste, so it's really frustrating. But because I think healing elixirs would go really well on the Windwalker, but you can't actually take it. So there you go, that's my little bit on healing elixirs. Lovely Mistweaver changes, which is just specific to Mistweavers, but Enveloping Mist, you can now get at level 16, so you don't have to wait for a billion years to get it. Really great buff. Obviously, it's like kind of specific, but basically it uses free chi and does like a hot and a big heal. Healing provided by Chi Burst and Chi Wave has been reduced by 25%. Oh my god, that is so horrible. I feel really bad. Like, it's kind of, you kind of need them. Chi Burst is shit, right? No one takes Chi Burst, right? Chi Burst, what it does is does some damage and some healing, but it's a 1-second cast, so you ain't gonna take that as melee or tank, right? So it's like, oh, we're aiming this at Mistweavers, right? Pretty much, because unless it was to do amazing healing or amazing damage, neither of those it does. Chi Wave is still gonna be better, even if they nerfed it to the sun, because it's instant cast, and you don't have many. Well, you don't have as many instant casts as you like, especially like healing or whatever. And like, if this is still casted thing, and it also costs 2 chi, and Chi Wave costs 2 chi. If it cost 0 chi and was 1-second cast, I think people would take it more. But it doesn't, so whatever. Okay, so Renewing Mist now travels to 2 additional targets, and it was 3. This is a big nerf, despite what anyone might think. This is actually PvE nerf, so don't worry too much. But basically, what it's going to mean is that your AoE healing is going to be shit. In 5s, this is actually a nerf as well, but not so big a nerf because it's more still single target healing. But in 3s, it's still going to be fine. It's still going to bounce. You know, you put it on one person, it bounces to whoever, so you and the other person that it didn't go to. And it's just a hot, so it's still going to be fine for 3s, which is where things are bounced around. 5s is going to be a little bit of a nerf, but not the biggest in the world. Rated Battlegrounds, on the other hand, that's a really big nerf for rated Battleground players. Mostly because you would be able to check out Renewing Mist, and then it would just go to everyone. And it's got a 8-second cooldown, so it's kind of like you can't spam it enough that it would think so, to keep it up on everyone, because it has got like a duration of, you know, 18 seconds. So there you go. A buff to Mistweavers, which is that the mana cost of Sue Mist has been reduced by 33%, which will mean that you are going to be able to use this a hell of a lot more, which is what it needed to be. It needed to be able to be just like you could chuck it on constantly, and then it was when you choose to use your other spells, which, you know, I think this is just like more a quality of life thing, because you'd run out of mana, but you shouldn't have. So now it's going to be like they're trying to encourage you to use Soothing Mist more, which is great. Pretty awesome buff as well. Haste from Mistweaver is now 50% more effective through Stance of the Wise Serpent, which is going to mean that your stuff is going to cast faster, which is going to also sort of contradict the last thing I said, where Soothing Mist normally would make stuff instant cast, but now this is going to mean that you're going to be able to cast even faster. So your tick should go off even faster on Soothing Mist, which will mean, you know, more healing, but also you're going to be able to not need to cast Soothing Mist as much. So it's going to sort of bring them both back into the sense of just increased throughput, as far as I can see, but also, you know, still really good buffs, I guess. You know, no one's going to complain about 50% increased haste. So the healing provided when detonating Zen Sphere has been reduced by 25%. In PvP, nobody uses this. Everyone uses Chi Waves. This is an AoE healing thing. Obviously in Raid Battlegrounds it might be pretty good. I don't know, I haven't healed in Raid Battlegrounds, but basically it's not really a great thing, so I don't really feel like this is that big of a nerf. I guess in PvE it might be, you know, in a big raid and stuff, you know, 25% when you're detonating it. It does cost 2 Chi, so you could only detonate it once after, and then you've got to build Chi again, so not the end of the world, but I just don't feel like that's that big of a nerf, really. Okay, so Paladins. First up, Turn Evil is now effective against aberrations, which are the things that Shadow Priest chuck out and stuff. It's actually quite a good buff, but not smashingly overly important, amazing. It is good though. It does allow you to feel like the Shadow Fiends and stuff like that. It's going to put you in a good place. It's actually also going to nerf Shadow Priests, like, against Paladins. So if you play Paladin, you hate Shadow Priest right now, it's actually going to be like, yeah, fuck you, I just get rid of your Fear bot, and I get rid of your Shadow Fiend. Now what you're going to do, you got no mana, and you got, you know, no extra damage, and you got no fear on me, so suck a giant penis. Next up, Hand of Salvation has been changed. This ability now removes all of the target's threat for 10 seconds, which should mean that when pets are targeting you, if you use that on you, then they should stop wanting to attack you. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be how it works, but we can hope, and we'll have to wait and see. A buff to Holy Paladins, which is that your 4-piece set bonus that gives your cooldown on Holy Shock reduced by 1 second is now 2 seconds, which is a really, really big nerf, because no, really big nerf? No, I mean a buff. What the hell am I on about? Holy Shock actually currently is a lot of damage, and you can use this other talent thing that gives you, like, lets you use it again and stuff, and it means you can do quite a lot of damage with Holy Shock, and then it's on a shorter cooldown, like, oh man, and it's also loads of healing, so I think this is a really good buff for Holy Paladins. I think it's going to move them in a really good place, and it's just 1 second. It's just mad. Retribution Paladins are going to get a nerf, which is that their 4-piece bonus is only going to be 65 seconds instead of 85 seconds, which is going to mean their Avenging Wrath, which is the wings, as everyone knows, the big yellow wings, they're going to actually be, you know, the cooldown for that is going to be less, more, sorry. So you're not going to be able to spam it as much. It's going to be a horrible nerf for Rets, only on longish games. It's more, I think it's more of a PvE aimed nerf, but like in PvP it's going to be like pretty significant in the sense of on one of those games where it goes for a little bit longer, you know, like it's going to be going for like 5 minutes or something. You're not going to have it back up, you know, there's going to be a 20-second period where you used to have it up, and now you're not going to, and it's going to be one of those moments, because you might have been needing it, and you're not going to get it up. That's right, sorry Rets, you're just not going to get it up. Okay, so we're at Priests. Atonement's healing range has been increased to 40 yards, up from 15. What this is going to mean is that you're going to get a lot more Disc Priests going heavier on the attacks and stuff, because they can heal passively through Atonement. It's going to mean that it's not such a big deal for them to be able to do it. It's going to mean in PvP is going to be a big buff for them in the sense, not like a straight up like, we're giving you 1 billion extra healing, but what it's going to mean is they can go offensive more often, and that's going to be a good thing. Next up is that Discipline Priests once again going to get Focused Will, which is actually going to mean that they're going to be kind of viable again. Oh my god, it took them so long to understand that they need to do it, and it needed to be a hotfix to have that back in, because they are fucking shit! Basically, what that does is every time that you get attacked for a percentage of your health, I think it's about 10, you gain like damage reduction buffs, which is obviously nice, but obviously this stacks twice as well, so I think it ends up being about like 20% damage reduction or something, I don't know. But basically, damage reduction is going to be there again. A change to how Spirit Shell sort of works. Basically what was happening is Inner Focus, which gives you increased crit chance and stuff, and basically makes your next kill or whatever crit, pretty much, wasn't working well with Spirit Shell, which is basically that next time you cast a heal, it makes it a shield and whatever, so it does like extra stuff. But now, it actually, when you crit with heal, it will, you know, your Spirit Shell will actually get the full effect of that, rather than before where it wasn't getting it. Okay, so Chakra Chastise now increases the damage dealt by Holy and Shadow spells by 50% instead of 15%, and reduces the mana cost by 90%, was 75%, while the ability is in effect. I've got to be honest, I don't really have a clue what the hell this is. I thought it was a symbiosis gift or whatever, because it says Moonkin. Because Chakra is a priest thing, but it says can't be cast while in Moonkin form, so I don't actually know, and I haven't played my priest, so I don't really know. I thought it might be like a spelling mistake or something, but basically I think this is the thing that does extra damage, and I think that like can't be cast in Moonkin form is meant to be there. But basically this will be a buff for Holy and Shadow damage, quite a significant one, which will mean that Holy will be better off in PvP. PvE I don't think it'll have too much of an effect. Chakra Serenity now increases single target healing by 25%, up from 15%. This is also another Holy buff. This will mean more healing, which obviously is great for PvE and PvP. I'm mostly looking at a PvP side, which is just an increase in throughput, which means, you know, less needing to be out in the open and stuff like that. I think this is a great move, really. Hopefully this will bring them in line with the other healers currently. And PvE buff, but sort of maybe a 5s buff, is Chakra Sanctuary, which is the AoE version of Serenity. Will increase your healing from 15% up to 25%. It's the same as Serenity. Basically, it's just going to increase your AoE healing. It's, you know, 5s buff maybe, and RBGs I guess as well. But I tend to still see it as just really a PvE buff more or less. Okay, so Psyfiend, which is the new pet that they got in MoP, the priest got anyway, which is the Fear, right? And the Fearing pet, and that is going to have a 2-second cast time instead of a 1.5-second cast time. What this is going to mean is that you're going to be able to kick it a lot easier, and it's not going to just sit there and spam. It's going to get off a hell of a lot less fears, which is going to mean a hell of a lot less CC spam coming out of Shadow Priests and Disc Priests. So overall this is a nerf for just priests in general, but it does mean that things are more fair in the sense of getting spam CC'd and stuff. Also, another nerf to Psyfiend is that it's going to have its health reduced to 10% of the priest's health, so it'll be around about some 30 something odd K. It'll be about 35k ish with the buff, I think, unless they stacked health for some reason. But in PvP we're talking, so what this is going to mean is you're going to be able to kill it really easy. And I don't know if this is kind of all that fair. Like before it was like you're going to have to use a couple of spells to use it on it, so it's not going to get cleaved away and stuff. But now it's going to be like you hit it once and it should go down, even with the resilience and stuff. So I don't know if this is going to be like, it might be the sort of thing where they have, like, priests have to shield their own pet when they pop it out or it'll die. So I don't know how close it is going to be and whether it's still going to be worth killing the Psyfiend, but obviously it's going to be an option now rather than before. It's going to be a bit too long if mid-burst and stuff to get rid of it. Now we move on to rogues. The first rogue ability change is that the energy cost of kick has been reduced from 15 down to 10. This is actually more or less a quality of life thing. This is sort of similar to what I was talking about with the monks earlier, where you have spear, hand strike was, you know, ridiculous amounts of energy, and the same sort of thing with kick is 15. It wasn't actually as bad for kick, but now you're going to actually be able to still use your moves more or less without screwing yourself over by using your kick just to think. So it's going to be like you're going to gain a big advantage rather than a mediocre one. Seal Fate now only generates combo points off melee abilities. This is basically because of the throwing weapon stuff. I'm sure if you're a rogue you already know this. This is actually a nerf. Kind of feels like it's a wasted place to be nerfing because they need a buff really, but we'll have to hope that this is you know, more of a okay-ish thing. I'm not sure because I don't play my rogue right now. Shuriken Toss now deals double damage when used against targets further than 10 yards away, which is a great buff really. That's going to mean so much more extra throwy weaponness. It's going to actually be worth using Shuriken Toss rather than you know, just being sat there and pooling your energy, I guess. So, you know, it's a great move, I guess, by Blizz. A much loved buff by most rogues as far as I would know. Blind's cooldown is being reduced from 3 minutes down to 90 seconds. This is, you know, 1.5 minutes roughly. Roughly is perfectly 1.5 minutes. What am I on about? But basically, this is going to mean that you can actually use it like more often. Like you can use it as a defensive cooldown rather than part of a big CC chain if you need to, because it's going to be up regularly enough. Like think of it like this. Let's say Demo Lock was on the enemy team and he pops his Demon Soul, and you've already used some of your other abilities, defensive abilities, and you need to stop them killing you or a friend or whatever. You can just chuck a blind at them, and that's, you know, just nulled it out, because there's only, apart from Paladins, I believe, and Trinket, obviously, that can get rid of blind. So, you know, I think this is a good move. Burst of Speed is a rogue talent that is just shit, basically. It costs 60 energy right now. They're reducing it to 50 energy. It's still not going to bring it into place that it needs to be. It needs to be a hell of a lot less. It needs to give them ultimate movement, you know. It basically gives like, it's 50 energy, so you got to, you know, spend quite a lot of energy, and it's 70% movement speed for 4 seconds, and it removes movement impair effects off you when you use it, and it also grants immunity to the reapplication of those. But what it really needs to do is grant immunity for all of the time it's up to 70%, and it needs to cost about like 40 or something, maybe, or maybe 35. So I don't know. I feel it still needs buffs, but we can only hope that they decide to do that later. They buffed the damage on Wound Poison by 33%, which is obviously great for rogues. More damage, you know. This is going to be a good place for them to have the damage, extra damage come in, because when you wanted to take Wound Poison before, it wasn't really as good as what it should have been, and you know, you needed the healing debuff. So now it's there, 33% increased damage. I don't know whether this is going to be lightnings away from their old damage, but hopefully this will give them that much needed kick in the ass to being higher in the rankings, let's say, of PvP. Feel like it's a good move though, but I still feel like most of the stuff is for rogues at the moment. The big problem is the lack of like damage reduction, where there's such big bursts coming out, and they're not nerfed all the big burst classes enough, so I don't know. Okay, so Warlocks. The two big auras they have, Elements and Enfeeblement, are now dispellable magic effects. This means you can't have the 20% melee damage reduction and stuff like that. It's basically gonna just, it's quality of life for everyone else. It's not a Warlock, because 20% damage reduction against all melees is ridiculous, and also you get 20% casting speed increase, but a lot of the stuff is instant cast, so it wasn't that big a problem, but it was the 20% damage reduction against all melee that was killing everyone. But now it's dispellable, so less of the want for Warlocks to put it up. You put it up when you need to, rather than having it up constantly forever. Probably the best Warlock change for everyone that's not a Warlock is that Demonic Gateway must now be activated by the player wishing to teleport. That means that you have to right click on it, sort of like when you go and right click a mining node, you have to right click it to use it, and this way that you're not gonna accidentally walk into it or get feared next to it, and then as you come out you just get ported straight away, and it's really annoying. But you know, it's good and bad luck type thing, and basically it's just going to mean less annoyingness. Like you could you can easy, like as a monk it's so easy because you roll, and if you overjudge the roll where it's like a new ability and you're not always going to get 100% perfect rolls, you just roll into it and then poof, goodbye, you're a mile away, and then you got to use like 2 rolls to get back to where you was, and you've got no rolls left, and that's when you've got the free roll talent. So it's really annoying, but you know, it's great change. They also have a glyph built in that is going to allow you to not need to use it if you're a Warlock, so you can just run into it and it works how it does now for you as a Warlock, so that's quite cool. Okay, so Kill Jaden's Cunning is now having a no cast time penalty, which is basically what it did before was have you stack a 2-stacking thing that gives you move speed and casting reduction, and the move speed is like 15%, but basically they took away the casting reduction, so you're going to be able to move and cast freely without any penalties to that, but only it's going to reduce your movement speed while you're casting, I believe. But another thing that was like is built into that is you can cast and channel wars at the same time. I feel like this, comparing to the other talents they get, the one is crap. I think it's Manoros Fury increases their area of effect by 500%, and you get Archimonde's Vengeance, which is you can use it on someone. It gives you 25% damage reduction for 8 seconds, because basically all 25% of all damage you take goes to them. But I think, wait, no, it gives you 25% increased damage. So if someone's nuking you, you put that on whoever you're nuking, and then it's counter pressure. It's like 25% counter pressure. and it also 5% of all damage done to you goes back to someone else as well. So, but you know, it's quite weird one. But I feel like it's okay. But then you also have, like, at the moment, Demonology is the best spec, and most of that stuff is instant cast, so I don't see the point at all. Psy Fiend and Shadow Fiend can now be banished. Great buff for Warlocks, so, you know, if you wanted to use that, then now you can. Okay, next up, Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire is actually getting some changes. They're getting some nerfs and buffs, mostly buffs for PvE and nerfs for PvP. But basically, Rain of Fire no longer going to cause a stun after hitting a target 3 times. Aftermath will now grant Rain of Fire damage over time, effect a chance to generate Burning Fire. So when Rain of Fire lands, it gets its dot on, it gives you a chance to get the Burning Embers. Rain of Fire no longer requires Immolate to get the Burning Embers, so you don't even need to cast Immolate when you're using Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire will now tick more often, so every second instead of 2, so you're going to be able to get a lot more damage out from it, basically, and you'll be able to get the Burning Embers up quicker as well. Overall, that's kind of a big nerf for RBGs, but nothing too bad for just in general arenas and stuff like that. Okay, they removed the ranged melee attack from Demonology Warlocks in Metamorphosis form and increased the damage of Doom by 25% to compensate, which means effectively this is actually going to give more burst during like Metamorphosis and stuff because of Doom, and not having to use the melee attacks and stuff. So it's kind of it's a buff and a nerf, because a lot of people weren't using the melee attack because it was really annoying. And now they're getting increased damage on Doom, and they're actually using Doom, so we can see some extra damage from Demonology Warlocks, which is just crazy. I don't even know why I'm having to say that, that's just mad. For everyone that's playing Destruction Spec Warlocks, which obviously is kind of okay at the moment, it's not amazing as compared to Demonology, which they are doing amazing Demonology Warlocks, but basically, Conflagrate now generates Burning Embers, which is a great buff. It's going to mean, you know, so much more Burning Embers, like, you know, the few Conflagrates you get off in between casts and stuff, it's actually going to just chuck up so many Burning Embers for you, so it's a great buff for PvP and for PvE. Some somewhat, let's say, quality of life effects they've added in. Demonic Gateway duration has been increased to 20 minutes instead of 15. And it will no longer despawn if the Warlock moves away, which is really annoying. Apparently, if you put it on one side of the arena, then you walk to the other, sometimes it would despawn on the bigger arenas. And the battlegrounds, rated battlegrounds, you couldn't rely on it unless you got the Warlock to hang around, which is just mad. So now it'll stay there, especially in World PvP and stuff like that. You can zone out and it doesn't affect it. This is a great change. Also, the duration change is good, because that means now you can actually... You cast it like once, and then you'll be able to. It'll be there pretty much like a whole of battleground and a whole of arena. Especially, you know, arenas now are like 15, going to be maxed at 15 minutes. So this is quite a good change, I guess. Okay, so Avatar is getting a nerf for warriors. Obviously, this is the first warrior little bit, and there's only 3 parts, so you're not going to be here for long. Avatar is going to no longer have immunity to movement and power effects. It's now going to break them, so it's going to be like a 1 second freedom, basically. Let's just put it like that. It's just going to like go boom, you're out, and that's it. That's all it's going to give you. So you can use it to get out of novas, but then if they nova after, then you're stuck in it. It also is no longer going to generate any extra rage, which is kind of annoying, I guess, because you would be able to normally use it on like low rage and still be okay to like pop your move straight away. Now you're going to need to build up some rage before you use it. Also, its duration will be increased to 24 seconds. That's mostly to stop like people just rooting and then them having to sit through it and then lose all of Avatar. So now it's going to be, you know, that's why they changed that, but it's still CCable rather than, you know, just, you know, you can root them basically. As far as I'm concerned though, Avatar did need this nerf, mostly because there's a lot of classes that they, you know, it's like they wait for you to pop some CCs and use them so they're on cooldown. And then they save their trinket for it, and they pop Avatar, they pop all of their big cooldowns, and then they just try and smash something to death. And, you know, without being able to root them and or slow them or anything, they can pretty much do that with their great maneuverability, as everyone knows they have. So, you know, I think this is important that this nerf was there. Although I still feel they should have just been focusing more on the damage, but I don't know, Blizz is mad. Okay, so Warrior Fear, also known as Intimidating Shout, has been nerfed. It's had its... cooldown increased from 60 seconds to 90 seconds. This is quite a significant nerf, really. This is going to mean that You're not going to get spam feared or such. It wasn't really spam feared, it was just like, you know, you don't, I like to call them cycles, but you have like a cycle, so it's like, oh, got CC'd, feared, and then, oh, the cooldown's back up, like, you know, all those sort of things repeat again, so like deep freeze and stuff like that. This is going to mean it's going to happen every 1.5 rather than every 1. And I think this is a good change, although, like, I still don't think that Warriors CC was a big thing. It was the damage, right? Like, I think everyone agrees it was the damage that was crazy, so I don't know. Okay, so a nerf to Glyph of Gag Order is the final thing that Warriors are getting, which is, you know, just free nerfs, basically, straight up free nerfs. Silence is getting removed. This is going to mean so crazy shit for Warriors, like, no ranged interrupts and stuff. They're taking away the range completely. They said they wanted Warriors to be more about maneuverability rather than range stuff, so I can agree with them and their opinion on this, although it did feel like that was a skill related thing, and it's when they was up close that they was just using it as a, you know, a blanket, so, you know, because they haven't got any ranged CC, like, if you was to use it, if you was to use, like, the, your thrown weapon or whatever it was, I can't remember what the name of the thing is, it's one of the throws anyway, I think it was heroic throw, with silence, and then your teammate would have to do any, like, CC on top of that for it to be a blanket, but it was when they was in melee range it was a problem, and it was more skilled at long range, but they took them both ways, so, I don't know. To be fair, I don't really care, it's a warrior nerf, they do still need the damage though, they should have gone damage and not, like, I would have rather them have the intimidating shout and silence and have some damage knocked off, but you know, they went a different way with it. And finally, we have 1 point on Shamans. That's all that Shamans get. I don't know why, but basically, it's a nerf to Shamans, and it's going to stop them placing totems upon being silenced. It was kind of annoying, I guess, for anyone that was playing against them, because even though you'd silence them, they could magically put down a totem. So, you know, silencing is meant to stop you using magical effects, and then this totem appears out of nowhere. So, I don't know, but basically it's going to stop you using it. If you silence them, it's going to lock out, like, if it's a school-specific lockout, it's going to, all of the stuff apart from the fire elemental totem and the magma totem and the searing totem is nature, and then those 3 are fire, and then that's the schools that get locked out. So, to be fair, I think they kind of needed it. Shamans are pretty strong, but this isn't going to be super, super OP. This is going to be mediocre. I don't think it's going to drop them, like, miles down in the healing in arena and stuff, and certainly DPS and stuff aren't super dependent on their totems, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think they're gonna be okay though. Okay, so final parts. They're doing a PvP UI change, which is gonna make a banner appear whenever you lose control of your character. So stuff like polymorph, fear, or anything like that, it's gonna show a banner and then to show you what is actually CCing you, so you understand and know. Rather than, you know, like, I guess it's mostly for new players or anyone that likes to add on lose control. You're not going to need to use that anymore because they're going to put it straight in the normal UI, and this is basically a quality of life thing. So it's like low level players that are like, what the hell, I can't cast anything, what the hell, and then you realize, oh, I'm silenced, right? Like, and it takes a while to kick in, like that you've got a debuff of silence, but now it's just going to show it straight up in the bottom. So it's a pretty good move by Blizz. Some other minor parts are that arena matches now have a limit of 25 minutes instead of 45 minutes. Rated Battlegrounds now share the same spell restrictions as arenas, and the growing conflict between the Horde and Alliance is going to allow you to be able to do Windgrasp and Tolbarad at level 90. These things are all just, you know, kind of increase the amount of arena matches you do and or allowed to do, you know, in silly comps. Trying to get rid of some silly comps, I guess. Like double healer might be classed as silly by Blizzard, but it's gonna stop them being able to go on for hours and hours. Obviously 25 minutes is a better time limit in a sense anyway. You know, I think like 10 minutes is kind of like what the game should be aimed at. But anyway, also Rated Battlegrounds, that's obviously just to stop people using some moves that are kind of crazy OP in Battlegrounds, but you know, you can't use them in arenas because they're OP, but you can use them in Rated Battlegrounds, right? Yeah, so this is just, I guess, normal changes that you've got to look out for. Okay, so you reached the end of the video. If there's anything you feel I missed or needed to go over that was PvP related, please leave it in the comments below. Other people are obviously going to want to know if I've missed it. Also, if I said anything wrong or that you thought, you know, was a more of a buff or more of a nerf or like needed to be stressed more, please say in the comments. I think like I need to know because I'm not 100% perfect on every class. I don't think anyone is really. And then also you have like other people will want to know if it's their class and stuff. So also feel free to like and comment and sub and anything you want for anything else. And I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.